Welcome to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, created and hosted by Scott Knudsen, to explore the crossroads of horses and business. Now here's your host, Scott Knudsen.
Hello and welcome to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. I'm your host, Scott Knudsen. Thank you so much for joining us today. Whether you're watching our podcast on one of our many platforms or listening to us on the radio out in California on KCAA, our NBC affiliate. Thank you so much for watching today and listening. Today, we have a very fun show for you, Dr. Mary Marczak, and she is a mixed animal veterinarian living in LaGrange, Texas, and she is a motorcycle vet, and she has a great horse story, actually many great horse stories. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're going to have fun. So, so did you just grow up as a kid? Like as a kid, did you just say one day, I want to be a veterinarian?
Oh, it was every day. I was one of those annoying little girls that ran around telling everyone who would listen, or even people that wouldn't, that I was going to be a veterinarian. I would drag home every living soul that I possibly could that my mother and father just welcomed into our home: cats, dogs, cattle, horses, you name it. And it was a calling to me. It's something I've always wanted to do.
That is so cool. It's so cool. You get to live your dream, for your life, So many people want to, and you just followed through.
Yeah. Never had a plan B, never had a desire to do anything else. Even my own mother, just trying to be practical as I was in undergrad applying for vet school. And she was like, well, okay, but what if you don't get in? And I said, I'll get in.
I'm not worried.
But what if you don't? And I'll get in, and I did, and off I go.
I love that.
There's just no failure.
I love it. That's the only way to go. Just go straight. Just keep going straight. Yep. So did you grow up in a rural environment, or did you grow up in town?
In town, in Houston, yes, sir, in a neighborhood.
Come on.
And in a neighborhood. So our neighbors got a little nervous when they started hearing chickens and seeing lambs being walked with harnesses and lead ropes around the elementary school that was across the street from us. I had the only thing that lived, I had rabbits. I had chickens, rabbits, and lambs in the backyard.
That's cool.
And then, we didn't have HOAs back then. And because I'm 53, so this was a long time ago. And let's see, then the steers and the hogs were somewhere else. But the chickens, lambs, and they were all in the backyard.
Isn't that something? So how did you start living in Houston, Texas, saying, hey, I want all the animals I can get, like Noah's Ark? Just come on.
Well, it just happened. I would, if there was something that I couldn't home, with us, with our family, then I wanted to be a part of learning how to network. Where can you go? Where can this stray dog go that was hurt? And so we fixed it up and paid its vet bills. But, because my mother and father were very softies too. And, but then where to take it? Foster it for a rescue group. The Houston Humane Society was really good even back then at, they were subsidized well enough that, okay, you foster it until we can find a home. So did that. Of course, all the kitties just lived at our house, and everybody was spayed and neutered. You're allowed to stay, but you're not allowed to have babies. And, and then I end up with one horse and then two horses and, that kind of thing. But as long as we could afford to feed it and take care of it, we could have it. My parents did instill that in me, in that it's not fair to take it in and not be able to properly feed it, clothe it, house it, whatever. That was just a lesson. Even in the human, kids that were going to my school that had bad situations at home, and would stay at our house for a while. And you have to be able to properly care for something to help it. And so they instilled that in me growing up as a child, which was awesome. I'm glad for that.
Absolutely. That's a really cool, it's cool to get to grow up like that, being surrounded.
I was blessed.
Yes, absolutely. So where'd you go to school?
In Houston, high school, then went on to Texas A&M,
Awesome.
and finished my freshman and sophomore. And back then, I went ahead. Of course, I didn't have any money and needed to go right into vet school as soon as I could. And so took the MCAT in the spring of my sophomore year, which was at least a year or two earlier probably than I should have taken it. But I was like, I got to get on this show on the road. I don't have any extra money for another year or two of rent and feeding myself because I like to eat. And so went to started applying the fall of my junior year, and actually got in the first wave, got an interview and got accepted in December of my junior year. And so I went into vet school before I completed my bachelor's.
Isn't that
But
something?
I didn't want to do anything else. And that's when my mom was like, well, maybe, don't you think you maybe ought to have a plan B? Didn't have a plan B, just went right straight to vet school, and graduated on a Thursday, moved on Friday, unpacked on Saturday, and started work on Sunday, or that Monday.
Oh my goodness. So you had it mapped out to a T, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Get to work.
I love it. I love it. So being a vet, it's a very rigorous job. It's definitely a job of passion for sure, but it's a tough job. Can you take maybe somebody that's listening to us on the radio or maybe even watching this, never really understood what a veterinarian does?
Oh gosh. Well, my practice, the day could start with plain and simple preventive care type of vaccinations and making sure that something doesn't get sick. And then, a hit by car dog comes in the door, a heat stroke in the summertime. We had a lot of those. Burn patients, coming out from the fire department from home, fires. We'd have, of course, horse colics or horse injuries. We took all of our own emergencies, and so that C-sections on, all kinds of different species. One day, funny story, you'll have to do the shepherd's hook and bring me back from telling stories if you have a point you want me to make. But this guy called from about an hour away, and he's sobbing, and the receptionist said, this man's driving from Hillsboro. This was when I was in Granbury, with a snake, and he says it's choking, and he's crying, and he's coming, and he's on the way. And I'm like, okay, a snake that's choking. Depending upon the size of the snake, they could be fed a pinky, a real immature 2 or 3 day old mouse. They could be fed a rat. They could be fed a rabbit. And so a snake that's choking. So he walks in the door, and this man is as big as my house, and he's, a huge man, looks like a bouncer, all tatted up. And of course you try not to stereotype, but I'm like, oh my God, if I don't save this snake, this man's going to kill me. And so, and he's sobbing. And I get the snake, and their teeth are faced backwards so that when they ingest something, it's stuck. It's not going to be able to get out. And the lower jaw had turned all the way around, and the tooth had stuck. And so the jaw was actually turned all the way around. And all I had to do it was a big boa. It was about 9 foot long. It was crazy big. I mean, he wore the snake, he was so big. And so I unhooked the tooth, and, the snake moves his jaw around, and he's all happy again. And I mean, this man is hugging me, squeezing me, picking me up, kissing my cheek for saving the snake. And okay, thank you, bye.
That's awesome.
And off he goes. And so you never know what kind of day you're going to have, which was so much fun.
Right.
To not really ever know what was going to come in the door.
That is so cool. So did you do most of your practice in the clinic, or were you out in the pasture?
I did house calls. I did a lot of house call euthanasias because I was the only one in my town that would do that. And that was a real it became a real pleasant thing for the clients who wanted something like that to happen at home. The animals were more comfortable there. They were certainly, they weren't having to be either trailered or put in the car and moved if they were hurt or sick. Their family could be around them, their other
Right.
pets could be around them. And so I did a lot of house call euthanasias, a lot of farm calls, which I really liked. It was fun to get out of the clinic and get dirty and smelly and fun stuff like that. Lots of pulling calves and we had a lot of goats, did a lot of dystocias or abnormal deliveries in goats. So yeah,
Wow.
it was fun. I enjoyed it.
There was something you said about euthanasia, and we'll get off the topic because it's not one you smile about, but it was so interesting. You said you after you do that, you leave the animal there if it's with other animals.
Yeah, so it's really important. Animals grieve too. Animals need to have that closure, and so I would always tell my clients in preparing for, like, if a dog had kidney failure or cancer or something that they were going to have to be facing euthanasia soon, I would tell them, if you have other dogs, you have other cats, you have other pets at home, it's best, let's euthanize the pet at home and have those other pets the ability to come up to the body. And sometimes dogs will just sniff and kind of look and maybe, investigate, and then they walk away. And if you were to just take your, Fluffy out of the home in the car to the vet and never come home with Fluffy, that other dog, and sometimes the cats and other species, even birds, and I've had guinea pigs do it, birds do it, ferrets do it, they'll look and they'll hunt and they'll search and they'll wonder, and watching, especially the dogs, look for that other pet is heartbreaking. The people need to move on. And I've done it with horses. If foals were to pass away at the clinic, the mares leave them in the stall. They would actually bury the foal with shavings.
Wow.
And then when they kind of just step away from it, the mares won't call for it. They won't look for it. They'll dry up a lot faster. And I didn't do a lot of horse breeding, but horses need to have that moment. And sometimes it's something as simple as a couple of sniffs, and then they'll okay, and they move on. That chapter is closed, and there's no more looking or searching. So it's a very it's a hard thing to do, but people will call me later and go, oh my gosh, I would have never thought that my other dog needed some help. I thought I was just the one that needed help through that. And thank you, and it made me feel good that I was helping them through a terrible time.
Yeah, it's a sad story, of course, but it's so great you shared that, because it was interesting to me, and I've been around animals all my life, and it's neat to see that other perspective, for sure. For sure.
Well, my husband would always say, I would anthropomorphize too much, that's where we're putting human emotion, human behavior, human logic into the animal's beliefs or actions. And sometimes that's true, but I see it. I see how they respond. I see how they react, and I see how beneficial it is. And so they need that closure just like we do.
Makes sense. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's something else.
Scott will be right back with more.
Hi, I'm Scott Knutson, host of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, heard on KCAA Fridays, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'd like to talk to you about something I'm very passionate about. Those that know me know I love my coffee. In the morning, afternoon, and even late in the evening, I enjoy a good cup of coffee almost any time of the day. Now, my team at the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show has been working for several months on creating and introducing our own brand of coffee. We wanted to make sure that we got it just right. We don't want to put our name on anything unless we're 100% certain that it's the best product available, and we've finally done it. We have created a wonderful line of coffees, 13 fantastic flavors offered in whole bean, ground, and K-Cups. Any way you like to brew your coffee. Now, each of our coffees carries our brand, the very same brand that we put on our horses, our trailers, and our chaps. So you know that this is a quality product. And we only use 100% Arabica beans, the very best beans available. Just listen to some of these wonderful blends and flavors. Jamaican Me Crazy, Honduran San Marcos, Chocolate Cherry Amaretto, Breakfast Blend, and my very favorite, Haley's Blend. A coffee so good, we named it after my daughter. You can order these coffees today by going online to javacowboy.com. That's javacowboy.com. And if you order today, you can get an extra 10% off your final purchase just by entering the promo code Cowboy on checkout. Remember, that's promo code Cowboy for an extra 10% off. Just go to javacowboy.com to order your coffee today. So the motorcycle vet. So I don't know. I think that's the coolest name. That's just cool, man, because it's two cool things you do right there, among others. So what do you ride?
Right now I have a Goldwing, a Honda Goldwing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
we've been on. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's all you.
I started with a Deluxe, which is a Softail Harley in 07, and it was blue, white, and chrome. It was a prettiest. It was a hot bike, and but I just couldn't quite keep up with the boys on their bikes, and they kind of drove a little faster, and so I got my first Road Glide, which is the biggest touring bike Harley makes. And that was really cool. And then got another one, and we ride those all over the place. We rode them, from Texas all the way up to Montana, all around Colorado, and then after, we go far enough that we want to be a little bit more comfortable, and so now we're on a Honda Goldwing.
Awesome.
My husband rides his, I ride mine.
That's a good deal right there. That's pretty fun. Yeah. So let's talk customers that you've worked with.
Okay.
Give us another funny story, because I think it's so insightful. When you're giving over the trust of their animal or their pet to you, that's a lot of responsibility. So what's another funny story? Because I'm sure you could write a book.
Oh my God. Probably the most odd story is my husband, because I see everything that walks in the door. I never say no. That was kind of a mantra. I never say no. Find a way to get it done. Well, I get this phone call, and oh, are you Dr. Marczak? Yes. Do you see camels? And I was like, who is this? It's one of my husband's friends, and so in case the guy was for real, I said, well, I've seen alpacas and llamas. I guess it's pretty dang close. And sure, I'll see your camel. What's wrong with it? Well, I need it castrated. Oh, okay. That's a first request for me for that, but sure. And he goes, well, do you do that on a house call? And I said, I sure could, but it needs to be kept up for 24 hours and then before it's let it out into the pasture. Oh, I don't have a place for that. Could I bring him to the hospital? Yes, of course. We have big stalls. And he goes, well, the problem is I don't have a truck and trailer. So can you come get him? Okay, now it's getting weird. But okay, so yes, I can come transport him. I have a truck and trailer. And he goes, okay, so I'm not there, but he lives in this 200-acre pasture. So here's my gate combination. You just drive up through my gate and just call his name. Just call Walter. And I'm like, who names a camel Walter? Certainly this has got to be one of my friends. And I said, so I just drive in and I call for Walter, and Walter's going to come. And he goes, yes, ma'am, Walter will come. And I said, and Walter will just happily get in my trailer? And he goes, yep, you just point in and he will just walk right in there. I'm like, okay. And I said, so, what is your credit card number? I'm going to charge you if I get out there and this is a joke, or, and he goes, oh, no, ma'am, just call Walter. Okay. So I drive out there. The ranch was in Glen Rose. I drive out there, drive through the gate, call for Walter. And I'm standing there leaned up against my truck, and I'm drinking a Diet Coke, which I drink too much of. And I'm sitting there drinking my Diet Coke, and vroom, 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 here comes Walter running across the pasture. And I'm like, there is no way somebody is videoing this, and I'm going to be on the show. Here comes Walter. So he comes up to me, and I had a halter and lead rope out. I didn't really know what I was going to do with it, but I had a halter and lead rope.
You were almost
out.
prepared.
Yeah, and shucks, I was alone, and nobody to video it. And so while I'm talking to Walter about getting into the stock trailer that I had open, he takes my Diet Coke and lips it and just tosses it back, drinks my whole entire Diet Coke, and I'm just watching this like, no way. Okay, Walter just stole my Diet Coke. Put the rope gently around his neck, walked him in the stock trailer, shut him in there, and off we go to the clinic.
Oh my goodness, Walter! You and Walter in the Diet Coke.
It was crazy.
I love that.
That was probably the most odd, unexpected. Glad it turned out the way it did. Kind of.
That's amazing, Walter.
Who does that?
I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to even imagine. I wish it was a camera on it, because that's just amazing right there. Amazing. So we were introduced by a friend of ours, Dr. Michael Johnson. And you talk about being surrounding yourself with positive people and kind of not pushing away, but just having those positive people around you, those good influences. And he's definitely that. But would you mind just talking a little bit about your positive mental state? Because being a veterinarian is really tough. And how do you stay positive every day?
Well, first of all, try to turn a negative into a positive, in that, okay, this animal is sick. Let's diagnose why and how, and let's find a way to fix it. If we can, let's do right by the animal and the client that brought it in. And so that's taken, a negative situation and making it better. Right. Certainly surrounding myself with good staff that loved the job. They took care of each other. They took care of my patients with the same kind of care that I had. And so that was positive. I just had a good way of turning a bad situation better. If the clients were upset, certainly they were sad. Sometimes they were mad. Sometimes they were mad at somebody else, but took it out on us. It happens every day. The desk clerk or the stop and rob, I call them stop and robs, the gas station clerk always seems to get the brunt of somebody else's anger, and we were no different. We would get that, but I had a very good way of talking them down and making a positive situation. It was very sad. Sometimes people didn't have the money. They had the desire to help, but they didn't have the money. Ooh, yeah. And and that was always a hard situation. You just do the best you can. But it was always fun for me to see something through. And in those sad cases, which they were terminal, I still had this positivity of, I'm gonna help you find a humane end to a suffering that's guaranteed. I'm gonna help you. So I helped the humans that brought them in. I helped. Sometimes there were kids. There were kids involved, and parents didn't know quite how to talk to their children, and so I kind of would help with that, even though I never had any of my own. The very best thing you can do is tell them the truth. Yeah. Because they'll know when you're lying. Absolutely. And they need to know the hard truth. They want to know the hard truth, and let them be a part of it if they can handle it. And so I always just had a knack for getting myself, and I think it was really self-preservation. I had good coping skills, and so I was able to get through the day bearing suffering, but not carrying it around as my own suffering, I could put something to rest and move on,
Right. Makes sense.
which helped me stay sane.
Well, like you said, it's the power of the positivity. It's just helping somebody else get there too. And that's tough. It's such an emotional deal, and good and bad, good and bad.
Thank you for listening to the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. Scott will be right back with more. For more information on Scott Knudsen, the Cowboy Entrepreneur, visit us online at cowboyentrepreneur.com.
Hi, I'm Scott Knudsen, host of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, heard on KCAA Fridays, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'd like to talk to you about something I'm very passionate about. Those that know me know I love my coffee. In the morning, afternoon, and even late in the evening, I enjoy a good cup of coffee almost any time of the day. Now, my team at the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show has been working for several months on creating and introducing our own brand of coffee. We wanted to make sure that we got it just right. We don't want to put our name on anything unless we're 100% certain that it's the best product available, and we've finally done it. We have created a wonderful line of coffees, 13 fantastic flavors offered in whole bean, ground, and K-Cups, any way you like to brew your coffee. Now, each of our coffees carries our brand, the very same brand that we put on our horses, our trailers, and our chaps. So you know that this is a quality product. And we only use 100% Arabica beans, the very best beans available. Just listen to some of these wonderful blends and flavors. Jamaican Me Crazy, Honduran San Marcos, Chocolate Cherry Amaretto, Breakfast Blend, and my very favorite, Haley's Blend. A coffee so good, we named it after my daughter. You can order these coffees today by going online to javacowboy.com. That's javacowboy.com. And if you order today, you can get an extra 10% off your final purchase just by entering the promo code COWBOY on checkout. Remember, that's promo code COWBOY for an extra 10% off. Just go to javacowboy.com to order your coffee today. So let's talk about the filly.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. So how did you, and I've heard this story from a couple of different people. I love it. I think it's so important for people to listen to because whether they have horse or not, it applies. And so how did you come up on the filly?
Well, I was called upon to go see a horse for a client, and I call them sensuous exams, like sensuous. Sensuous here, can you look at this horse? Or sensuous here, can you look at this dog? So it was a sensuous exam, and the lady comes over and says, "Hey, would you look at this little yearling over here?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, no problem." So I go over there, and there's these 2 yearlings in this pipe fence, and they are wild as March hares. They had never been touched. She had bought them at an auction, and they were like climbing the fence, scared, trying to go the other direction. And I'm like, well, go ahead and put a halter on them. And she goes, yeah, I can't. No way I can put a halter on them. Can you look at her eye? I'm like, well, that's gonna be
pretty
up
tough.
and close and personal, And so I kind of pushed them into a corner, a pipe fence corner, so they couldn't hurt themselves too bad. And since they were kind of pinned up against each other, they were still enough that I could see that this horse had what's called a desmetocele. It's that smooth, glassy outer part of the eye, the cornea. Think of it just as a specialized skin. It's extremely, extremely thin, and which makes it transparent. Also, it doesn't have any blood vessels, which makes it transparent. So, but think of it as skin, and if you abraded it deeply enough, it's gone, and the very last membrane before the eyeball ruptures like a water balloon is the Descemet's membrane. So it looked like a blister, and I told her this is fixing to rupture any second now. The eyeball is going to rupture like you put a pin in a water balloon, and it needs to have surgery. You can save the eye, you can save the vision. It's just a yearling. She has her whole entire life to live. She was a beautiful little yearling. And, well, how much is that going to cost me? Unfortunately, that was the first question. And I was like, oh, okay, well, first it needs to come to the hospital. Then I need to halter break it after the surgery that I do. And I do medication every 2 hours for first couple of days, then every 3, then every 4. So, I put out a number and she was like, well, of course the horse is not worth that. I'll just take her back to the killer.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, okay, owe me $53 and I'll be on my way. And which is sad, but it's in that positivity place of, I cannot make your lack of responsibility or maybe she was being responsible because
Right.
financially she couldn't do the right thing. Sometimes there are fates worse than death, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being neglected, being in pain every day.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
true.
I left and I went home and I stewed about it. And I told my husband, I was like, I'm going to go get that horse. Bless his heart, he never tells me no. And, but I also am very good at not making other people's problems my own. And he goes, okay. So the next morning I call her and I said, okay, here's the deal. You owe me $53. You're not going to do anything for that horse, even if you take her to the killer. So I'm gonna come get that horse. I'll write up the paperwork and I'll forgive that debt of $53. Okay. Took it off her hands, and so took the stock trailer, had to literally run like, this wild horse up in the stock trailer, brought her, and the eye had already ruptured that night. And so brought her home, did the surgery, which is a corneal graft. It was a really cool surgery, really fun surgery to do. So I really couldn't wait to do it. Did it. She did awesome. It was fabulous and saved the vision, saved the eye.
Wow.
And then she just parked out in my pasture for the next 8 years because I was riding my other gelding all the time. And he was just a perfect gentleman. I'd had him for years and years and years. He was one of those that if you think pick up the left lead and go left, he just did it.
Oh, wow.
I should have reined on him because, he would have been one of those horses you never saw the cue. I never had to lean. I never had to push. He was just the perfect gentleman, like a Cadillac to ride. And so he was about 30 and when I had Philly broke. And so she was 8 when I had her broke, which was a mistake on my part to let her just go out and be a horse for 7 additional years.
Yeah.
But when he died, he colicked one morning and I put him to sleep. And I can remember thinking, which is a horrible thing, and people are going to think negative, terrible things about me, but I can remember thinking, honestly, why didn't she die? Why did you have to die? Why did you colic to the point of euthanasia? Because he was a surgical colic and he was 30 years old and I wasn't going to do that. I posted him, I did a necropsy on him afterwards and it was an epiploic foramen entrapment. It was definitely a surgical colic. He was not going to probably even make it through that without laminitis and he was already 30 years old. So it was the right thing to do for me and him to put him to sleep. But I can remember honestly thinking, why couldn't it have been her?
Right.
Why did it have to be him? So I carried that grudge and that chip on my shoulder around with her as I began to interact with her and ride her. She grew up to be this fat, ugly, short-backed, thick-necked, pony-like, horrible conformation from what I had experienced with my boy, and I was like, you're like riding this cartoon horse. I hate riding you. I hate saddling you. I just hate. I just could not develop this positivity that usually I carry around all the time.
Right.
I did not like riding her. To trot her was like I was going to have a concussion or need false teeth or get my discs in my back replaced because she had this most miserable trot. I literally had to practice breathing on this horse's trot.
So a little choppy is what you're saying, a little choppy?
Oh my God, it was so bad. And so, as I began riding her, she was just a nutcase. I could not find this way of communicating with her. She was angry. I was angry. We were both frustrated. We both certainly didn't like each other. but I was like, I'm going to keep going.
Right.
I'm committed to you. You're my horse, and I should be better at communicating with you. So let me get some help. And I started asking for help from various trainers, from various industries, and I started taking her out and about. You need to see the world. You need to be around other horses. You need to be around other humans. I need to I need to get you out in the world. So she was so bad, and I tell people this that know her now, and they don't believe me, but she was so bad. I literally wore my full face motorcycle helmet to bridle her. She
Oh
was
my
that,
goodness.
she would twist her head, paw, kick, it was a miserable thing. It took an hour to saddle her.
Oh my
It took about
goodness.
another hour to put on her hoof boots.
Well,
It
for
was
you just to have to
misery.
wear your helmet shows how bad
A
of a
helmet.
situation that was. Oh my
It was
goodness.
terrible. So I began to do, okay, let's back up. Let me go out in the pasture, give you treats, give you loving, walk away. Always retreat, walk away. Let you know that it's not always work, it's not always bad, it's not always And so then I started carrying the bridle with me. Okay, see, it's just a bridle, it's no big deal. Because she would run, and I don't know if you know about Indians walking down horses, but how they would capture wild horses, but they
So
would
cool.
walk them down. And so I would walk her down. And this might take an hour and a half, but I would
Mhm.
walk her down. I was like, oh my God, bring in your Indian heritage and let's get this done. And so um, then I'd start just putting the bridle up near her pole, take it away. See, that's all I ask. And one day she was carrying on, and of course I had my helmet on, and she's, doing all this. And I'd had it. I had literally reached a level that
Mm.
I didn't of low, that I was sobbing, I was crying, I was so mad, I was upset. I was like, this life is too short to be for you to do this to me, or me to do this to you. Whatever's
Right.
happening needs to no longer happen. And so I started this deep introspection of, she's just a horse. She's just responding, with finding a way out, away from pressure. So I'm supposed to be the human with the bigger brain, the more logic, the ability to learn better, faster, more, etc. So from now on, since you're just a mirror, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be positive. If I'm having a bad day or you're having a bad day, I'm going to walk away. It's not a good day to
Wow.
train. If I come to you with negativity, you're only going to give it back to me tenfold. So I'm no longer going to do that. We're only going to move forward from here. And we're going to get lots of help, and we're going to go lots of fun places, and we're going to do lots of fun things. But we're going to be together, and we're going to like it. Dang it, we're going to like it.
Like it or not,
And
you're gonna like it.
yeah, I'm going to force the like. And it was just a new attitude. It was a new perspective. I started looking at her in a whole new light. She had become a boss mare to my remaining gelding, who was my husband's. And I began to appreciate the negative behaviors, what I thought were negative behaviors. She would bully him. She would drive him to water, drive him to shelter when it rained. She would drive him over here, out of the wind, out of the rain. She wouldn't let him stand near a gate. If there was trouble, she drove him into the woods. She was always driving him, driving him, driving him. And after he was euthanized, I realized she was just taking care of him. She was
Yeah.
just being a boss mare. And then I would see her in the rain, thinking I'd never seen her in the rain before, because she would always take him and put him in a safe place. And so I began to, appreciate her
Right.
and what she was doing. And it was just a different perspective, again bringing positivity.
Yeah.
And we began excelling at just about anything we tried. She began learning, and she just is truly my heart horse. It took me on a journey, reserve world champion in EXCA, which is an obstacle challenge. I mean, here she is doing obstacles at high speed, just answering cues that I'm giving her softly. She's willing and able. She's a lot of fun.
That's such a beautiful story, because it's the highs and lows of being with horses, but also you applied that same technique with your clients coming in with the different situations.
Mm-hmm.
You had to control the emotion, and I love that. I love that so much. And so when was your aha moment? Everybody has one when they go through a story like that, when you just went from.
Yeah. It was when I just fell down in the pasture.
That was it.
Sobbing, literally sobbing. And I can remember, I took off my helmet and I just sat there, and I can remember her looking at me like, oh, what is this? What is happening now? Why are you never seen this before? I could tell she was confused and interested. It's kind of like if you've ever lost your keys in the stall and you're looking for them, and the horse is like, well, I'm going to help you look. I don't know what we're looking for, but I'm going to help you look. They're just curious. And I can remember her sniffing me, my face, and like, not understanding what was happening, because she had never seen it before. And I was reaching up, and and I found myself just stroking her, just not even probably realizing it at first, just like, this is the end of this. Right. It's no longer going to be this way.
Right.
And if I'm not good enough, if I'm not strong enough, if I'm not able to help you, I will learn how to help you. Right. And you will learn how to help me. And we're going to do this together, because this is supposed to be a team, a good situation. And so clearly, this is my fault for not being able to communicate with you. Right. And from now on, if you're not getting it, it's my failure. I'm going to own that, and I'm going to not let that happen again. Right. And so if I see that you're struggling with something, then it's my cue. It's my translation during the learning process of the cue and then your response. Love so it. I'm going to work real hard at it. And this is on me. This is my bad, and I'm sorry. And from then on, it was just different. She is a mirror. Mm-hmm. And she gave me good vibes, and because I was giving them to her.
That is so cool. And I love the part about the boss mare. And I love standing out in the pasture and watching the boss mare, and how she handles the other mares, and then all the young geldings or colts. I always stick them out there in the mare pasture, because they teach them. Mm-hmm. They teach them better than I do. They teach them Mother Nature's way. And I love watching that. I love how you picked up on it. But when you needed help the most, she immediately went to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She gives me everything. I mean, sometimes, she's typical. She's not marish in that she does raunchy things just for fun. I mean, if she's having a moment, I mean, we all have moments. We all have
Absolutely,
bad days.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and I've had to give that to her, and she's had to give that to me. Mm-hmm. We've had to go, okay, today's not a great day to work on lead changes. We maybe just need to braid each other's hair or something. Let's just be girls today. Yeah. And stroke each other or whatever. That's just, sometimes we need that, and that's fulfilling. To recognize that and to have that happy moment when it could have been a negative moment. That's what's necessary sometimes, and I'm glad now that I can recognize it.
Yeah, I love it. It's such a great story, because, you get to a certain point when there's no turning back. You're that's it. And all of a sudden something flips, and then it just becomes magical. That's the best part about horse training. And if you let them, they'll teach you, and you just were like, okay. And that's so cool. So let's talk about the obstacle course and the Trail Challenge Club Association.
Okay.
So can you take somebody maybe that hadn't seen that competition? What's it like?
Okay, the Texas Trail Challenge Club, that
Mhm.
is out on trail, and sometimes they're private ranches that we've been able to
Awesome.
ride on, and sometimes they're like state parks with equestrian trails or whatever. But whatever venue, usually it's about 8 to 10 miles that we go out in waves on horses. Usually there's about 50 competitors, and there's three different classes, levels of advancement. And so people are riding their horses along, and about every mile there's 10 total obstacles. And so
Wow.
depending upon the terrain, they'll try to have them spaced out. And you walk up to an obstacle, and that's the first time you've seen it.
Mhm.
And then you tell them your level, which class you're in, and they give you instructions for that level for the obstacle. And it took me a couple of years to really pick up on what the judges were truly looking for. But this club has a debrief after everyone gets in from the ride. The judges convene, we all convene, the riders and judges, and then they will tell what they were looking for as far as cues or body control, or what the rider should have done, or decisions that make the obstacles achievement better, prettier, easier, whatever, to show off your horse, and your horse's ability. And then the judges score the riders and the horses separate. And
Right.
for the first couple of years, it was very embarrassing, and I really didn't know how it happened that Philly would actually outscore me. And one day I can remember asking the judge, how does this happen that the horse continues to outscore the rider? And they just laughed and they said, well, she does everything you tell her to do. Which,
What the?
which means I'm not telling her what to do correctly, but she's doing it,
Right.
and so I'm like, okay, well, all right, thanks. So, and I need to think about how I ride, my cues, are they soft? Are they accurate? Am I doing the best thing for the horse? And she just, after that second year, she just sailed through those classes.
So cool.
And it's nice now to know that as a rider and as a horse owner, people look up to me to help them. And even one of the judges at this last ride said, you really need to put on a clinic. And I was like, wow, that's probably the most flattering thing, is when people ask you for help.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when
Absolutely.
they want to, emulate what you do, copy what you
Right.
do, be able to do what you do. I mean, that is, the biggest form of flattery. And so, to be where I am now, even on the second horse, from where I started.
I
Yeah.
love that. It's so cool. I'm so glad we did that after you told the story about the filly, because being there, there's a lot of mental pressure and physical pressure, going to that with that many horses, that many people getting judged. I mean, she
Mhm.
totally transferred. I mean, just
Oh yeah.
so great. So
Yeah.
what's your favorite obstacle?
What's my favorite
Favorite
obstacle?
obstacle on the course?
Favorite obstacle.
Yeah, I know, right?
Mhm. I really like in Extreme Cowboy Association,
Mhm.
EXCA, that's Craig Cameron's. That's an obstacle challenge, but it's speed. It's a race. They have what they call in and outs, which are jumps that when you go over the jump and land with the front feet, when the back feet land, they're already propelling the next jump. And so you're,
Wow. Awesome.
in and out like that. Those are the most fun because Philly has really excelled at, she can rate herself. She's not a jumper, and
Right.
I'm not a jumper. And but she is very good at rating jumps. And so I have a couple of pictures which really just make my heart just so happy. When she's going over jumps, I literally just position my body and throw her the reins. I don't touch her face. I don't move. because I know I can trust her rating the jumps. So as I approach the ins and outs, I don't touch her. I don't mess with her. Because if I do, I'm going to mess her up. And so I think that's going back to some of that woo-woo stuff that we were talking about earlier, the introspection and everything. I know that I do not have enough going on fast enough to help her. She helps herself. And if I intervene, I'm only going to mess it up. Right. So, that's, nobody likes to be told, really, your horse is better at that than you, but she is. And I've learned that, and now I need to back away and let her do her job. And so probably the jumping, even though we're not really great at it, we do it. And she really makes me look good at it, because I'm not. She just does such a great job. So probably jumping.
That's awesome. It is so cool. So cool. So you got a motorcycle ride plan? Oh,
yeah. Every August we go to the mountains. We go to Colorado and buzz all around Colorado. We go to Utah, we go to Wyoming, maybe South Dakota, up into Montana. And pending weather, we don't have a plan. We literally just hop on and go. And we look at a radar and go, okay. And sometimes we got lost one time. Well, not lost. We just came to a T. We were in Utah, I'm pretty sure. And we came to a T in a road we'd never been on before. And my husband kind of was like, okay, we just went left. We had no idea what left was. We have a map, but we just went left, and we end up, seeing some beautiful, beautiful countryside, and just with friends, and we enjoy going with friends, and we ride real safe. We don't drink and drive, or we probably ride a little fast.
I won't tell anyone.
Don't record this for the insurance company. But we do like riding fast.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on our show, and I love the story about Walter. That was awesome. And still in your Diet Coke, isn't that's just funny? So funny.
Didn't know that would happen, but it was funny.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. I had such a great time, and I know the listeners and the viewers loved hearing your stories.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It was fun.
Thank you all for watching the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show.
Thank you to all the great sponsors of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show. If you or your business is interested in being a sponsor of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, please call our office at 830-992-1786 or visit our website, cowboyentrepreneur.com.
Hi, I'm Scott Knutson, host of the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show, heard on KCAA Fridays, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'd like to talk to you about something I'm very passionate about. Those that know me know I love my coffee. In the morning, afternoon, and even late in the evening, I enjoy a good cup of coffee almost any time of the day. Now, my team at the Cowboy Entrepreneur Show has been working for several months on creating and introducing our own brand of coffee. We wanted to make sure that we got it just right. We don't want to put our name on anything unless we're 100% certain that it's the best product available, and we've finally done it. We have created a wonderful line of coffees, 13 fantastic flavors offered in whole bean, ground, and K-Cups, any way you like to brew your coffee. Now, each of our coffees carries our brand, the very same brand that we put on our horses, our trailers, and our chaps. So you know that this is a quality product. And we only use 100% Arabica beans, the very best beans available. Just listen to some of these wonderful blends and flavors. Jamaican Me Crazy, Honduran San Marcos, Chocolate Cherry Amaretto, Breakfast Blend, and my very favorite, Haley's Blend. A coffee so good, we named it after my daughter. You can order these coffees today by going online to javacowboy.com. That's javacowboy.com. And if you order today, you can get an extra 10% off your final purchase just by entering the promo code COWBOY on checkout. Remember, that's promo code COWBOY for an extra 10% off. Just go to javacowboy.com to order your coffee today.